magic. Middle finger to my thumb and then I snap it. Just like magic, I'm attracted.
Alright, so boom. Alright, so I ended up drinking the drink around 12, like I said, y'all. Got my massage and everything, all that good stuff. I got in bed around 12:10, 12:15-ish, 12:20-ish, somewhere around there. So I'm laying in bed, y'all. I done drifted off to sleep. I was woken up by something warm, like I felt something warm trickling down my leg. And I wake up, I look under the cover, and I'm laying in a puddle. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, y'all, there was so many thoughts going through my head in that very moment. It had to be around 1 a.m. During that time. Mind y'all, this was less than an hour. I was in complete and utter shock. I was in shock because, like I told y'all, I was already skeptical about the drink in the first place. And so the fact that I felt like the drink had actually worked, like it had to have been the drink, because what else would it have been? Like I had just drunk the drink like less than an hour prior. And you know, despite all of the exercising and stretching and everything that I had been doing previously, nothing was working or nothing had aided in, you know what I'm saying, me going into labor. And so for me to drink that drink and then less than an hour later my water broke, that was just insane to me. Like, what the hell? So when I finally come to my senses, like, girl, your water has just broke. Like, yes, this is happening, this is happening, tomorrow, this is happening. And I really thought in that moment that I had plenty of time to, you know, get myself together, do what I needed to do to get to the hospital. Mind y'all, I had already packed me and baby girl's hospital bag before I took the drink, just in case, you know, it might work. I didn't want to be unprepared, so I just wanted to make sure everything was set up and good to go. I had my bath and all of that before I took the drink. So I was in shock mode at first. I immediately went into freak out or flip out mode immediately after, because I realized this is not a drill. You know what I'm saying? This wasn't a drill. And so I started screaming, y'all. My boyfriend was in the other room. He was still woke watching TV. I started screaming. I'm like, Journey, 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 Journey. So he comes running in the room like, what's going on? And I'm like, my water just broke. And he's like, you lying. I'm like, why would I lie? What reason would I have to lie? I'm like, I just drank the drink. He's like, let me see. So I moved the cover and let him see. And he comes over to the bed and is feeling on the bed to, you know, feel where it's wet or whatever. And like, at that moment, I guess he's in shock too, because he's just like, he's just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, he's just stuck. He's just frozen, talking about, oh my God. And I'm like, what do you mean? Help me, help me out the bed. Like, come on, we gotta get ready and go to the hospital. He helps me out the bed and I stand up. As soon as I stand up, like a gush of amniotic fluid starts coming down again. And I'm like, oh wow, because my water had never broke before. So I didn't know, you know, the process or how it worked as far as like, you know, how much water comes out, or I didn't know any of that. I didn't know. I was ignorant to that fact. I had no clue because I had never experienced, you know, my water breaking on its own. And when I was induced with my son, of course my water was broken then, but I was, you know, on the table and they had the mats and everything. My son was my first baby, so the last thing I was concerned about was, you know, how much water was coming out, and like my mind was focused on other things. So I couldn't remember, you know, like how much water came out or whatnot. Plus I was sitting on the bed the whole time. But like I said, with this pregnancy, my water broke naturally on its own. So as I'm standing there, it's coming down and it keeps coming down, and it's just coming down and it's just coming down. And as I'm walking to the living room to try to make it to my kids to get them up, it's just steady coming. Like, it's steady. It's just everywhere at this point. So the more amniotic fluid that's coming out, the more nervous I'm getting because I'm freaking out. But at this point, I'm still thinking that I had more time than what I actually had. So as I'm navigating around the house trying to get everything together, I went to the bathroom to try to freshen up a little bit, and all of a sudden a huge contraction just hit out of nowhere. Like, I didn't see it coming. I didn't feel like there wasn't any warning signs leading up to the contraction coming, or it was just like thunder. It's the most excruciating pain that I had ever felt in my life, y'all. Like, I had never felt anything like this pain. This pain was, it wasn't nothing to play with, and I will never forget it. It was almost as if somebody had just took my stomach, like someone with real strong big hands was just taking my stomach and just trying to, you know, just break my bones in half or something from the side. And it's like when the contraction would go away, it would just slowly, you know, gradually release itself from like the sides. And I remember telling my doctor, like, yeah, you know, I've never felt the contraction before. I want to feel all that. I want my water to break. I want to feel that. I want to feel the contraction. I want to feel it all. I want to experience this. Like, I want to experience this. I want this to be a whole thing, because this is my last baby. So this one is, you know, it's gonna go down in history. I want to be able to say that I did it all. And honey, all I'm gonna say is I got my wish. I got my wish. And yeah, I wish I wouldn't have, but I don't regret it at all, because like, I would have always wondered like how those things felt. And you know, some women never want to feel it, and that's fine too, but I'm just the type who would have wanted to experience that at some point with, you know, at least one of my pregnancies. So I am glad that I had that opportunity to experience that. I don't regret that part. So back to my little contraction situation, y'all. So my contractions were about, at that point, I want to say 3 to 5 minutes apart. And they were so bad to the point where I could not move. I could not breathe fully. Like, I was tense. All I could do was tense up. And I know that they say you're not supposed to tense up during contractions because it makes it worse, but the pain was so bad to the point where I couldn't, like, I didn't know what else to do. Like, it was just a natural instinct for me to just tense up as soon as they hit, as a coping mechanism. Again, I'm freaking out. I'm steady freaking out, because like I said, this is my first time that I'm experiencing this, and the contractions were coming so fast to the point where I was just so overwhelmed, because like I said, everything was just happening so fast. I didn't anticipate it happening that fast. I thought, as I mentioned before, that I was going to have a little bit of time, you know, to get the kids ready and do everything that I needed to do in that moment. So, but you know, I guess baby girl just had other plans, so I had to move with her. I had to be accommodating to her at that point. So what I ended up having to do was use the time that I had just in between contractions to go ahead and do what I needed to do. So every time a contraction would subside, I would, you know, slip on one clothing item or slip on my shoes, you know, go get my purse. You know, whenever a contraction would stop, I would try to do as much as I can in between time so that I could go ahead and make it to the car. So it was tough, but I got through it. And I remember right before we was getting ready to leave out the door, I had all of my clothes on. I had all my things ready to go. And as I was walking to the door, one hit me, and this was a big one. And I think at this point, they were no longer 3 to 5 minutes apart. I want to say they were either 2 or 3 minutes apart. So it was like either 2 or 3 minutes apart at that point. And so, honey, I barely had time to breathe. So I was like, at this point, I'm ready. Like, I'm trying to race to get to the hospital. Like, at this point, I'm terrified. I'm terrified that I'm gonna have this baby at home or in the car, and that was the last thing I wanted. So at this point, I'm just praying to God, like, Lord, please just get me to the hospital entrance safely. If you could just get me to the entrance at least, the rest will be fine, Lord. Just get me to the entrance safe. As I was saying right before we're getting ready to leave, I'm bent over on the couch because, like I said, I just got hit by another contraction. And Journey's like, come on, we gotta go, we gotta go. And I could tell he was nervous just by like his expressions on his face. And I felt kind of bad for him in a sense, because he was just reacting in the best way he knew how. And, you know, I could tell he was trying to be supportive of me, but at the same time, like, he just really didn't know, like, you know. He really didn't know what to do, and it's like, bless his heart. So he's standing there over me telling me, come on, we gotta go, let's go. Like, why you standing still? We gotta go. At that point, I was a little irritated with him because he didn't understand the severity of my pain. So as he's standing there telling me, come on, let's go, let's go, I remember my voice getting deep, and I was just like, I can't move. When I said it, his facial expression changed, so I could tell that he was pushed a little too much, so he kind of, you know, backed off a little bit. But I finally made it to the car, thank God. He's speeding to the hospital. I mean, he's already a fast driver as is, but on this night, baby, he is speeding to the hospital. Made it to the hospital. So he had the kids with him, and of course they couldn't stay at that moment, so he went ahead and rushed the kids to his mom's house with their grandma. And mind you, I'm still having contractions like every 2 minutes. Like they ain't never stopped. Like they've been coming the whole time. All the while he's driving and, you know, hitting speed bumps and all of this. Like I'm contracting, and it was just gruesome. I mean, I got my feet up on the dashboard, y'all, and just trying to handle the pain and take the pain any way that I could. I just kept thinking in the back of my head, like, you know, it's all gonna be worth it. I'm about to meet my baby girl. This is what I've been wanting. I wanted to have her, and now she's about to come. The day is here, the time is here. So I'm forcing myself to think all of these positive thoughts just to, you know, get me through it. And I feel like it did work ultimately, because I feel like I really handled those contractions like a G. I did that. Like, I feel like I took those things like a G, and I really commend myself for that to this day. Like, so proud of my little self. Like, I took it like a G. So I get to the hospital, y'all. I had already called the hospital previously to let them know that I was on my way, baby, because I wanted them to be ready. Like, do what y'all gotta do. Have the wheelchair, stretcher, whatever y'all need to do to get ready for me. Like, have that ready when I get there, baby, because I didn't want to clown on those nice people, but baby, I needed to be in stat, all right? Stat. So they take me in, they put me in the wheelchair, roll me up to the L&D, or labor and delivery. And when I get there, I'm telling them how much pain I'm in. Like, I'm telling them, like, please give me an epidural. Like, I need an epidural. Like, please, anything, anybody, like, give me, please. Like, I'm in pain. Please give me an epidural. And so of course they're all trying to calm me down, trying to let me know that they were going to give me my epidural, that of course they had to ask me a couple questions first to make sure everything was okay. They had to contact my doctor, let her know that I was there, you know, all that jazz. So, oh, and I didn't tell y'all, so I arrived at the hospital around 2 a.m. Now that just goes to show how fast everything went down. Remember, I said I took the midwife's brew drink at 12 a.m. and I arrived at the hospital around 2 a.m. So that just goes to show how fast everything went. Like, it was crazy. Like, it was really the craziest thing that I had ever experienced in my life. Like, it was crazy. So I'm there. So as they're hooking me up to the machines and everything, I'm still just in a state of uneasiness. Like, I'm uncomfortable. I was experiencing a whole lot of discomfort and just ready to get the epidural at this point. Around this time, I'm also starting to feel a whole lot of pressure just building up around my abdominal area. And so I know that she's getting ready to come, because I remember feeling that same type of pressure with my son, with Josiah. So I knew at that point, like, it wasn't going to be long. So they actually ended up telling me that my OBGYN, the one that, you know, delivered my daughter, the one that I wanted to deliver my baby, she wasn't going to be able to make it in to deliver my baby. And I was upset about that, as you would imagine, because, you know, I really wanted her to deliver my child. Like, she delivered my daughter and she was my OB, so of course I wanted her. But at the same time, like, I was in so much pain at that time that I just didn't care. I was like, okay, whatever, like, let's do it. So before the OB who delivered my baby ever came in, the nurse had checked me to see how far I was dilated. And I remember when she checked me, she said at that time I was around like 4 centimeters. So I was like, are you serious? Like, I'm having these contractions 2 minutes apart, and you telling me I'm only 4 centimeters? Like, how is that possible? Like, I was just agitated at that point, because I felt like in my head, I'm only 4 centimeters, so that means I can't have the baby yet. Like, I can't push, because you can't push at 4 centimeters. You have to be at least 10 centimeters to push. I didn't know at the time how long it was going to take me to get to 10 centimeters. It was at that moment that I really just start going into the stress mode, because I told myself, I ain't gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. So I really started having to just do a whole lot of pep talking and just, you know, assuring myself that everything is going to be okay. Like, you got this. You done had 2. You know, this your last one. This baby girl, she's the smallest of them all, because I had been told throughout my whole pregnancy that she was a tiny little thing. And so I knew that she was small. I felt like I wouldn't have any issues with the actual birth itself. So I wasn't too worried about that. Had to just keep reminding myself, like, you know, it's all worth it. You about to meet her in a little bit. Relax, calm down. Stop stressing. You got this. Breathe. I kept having to just remind myself to just breathe through it out. And I believe that the breathing really did get me through all of the contractions. I remember watching YouTube videos and talking to my doctor about, you know, certain breathing techniques. And I do honestly believe that those breathing techniques is what ultimately helped to get me through, you know, the contractions. Because the contractions were something out of a horror movie. The contractions were horrific. you know. So I believe that the breathing really just played a huge part in helping me to, you know, overcome those. So fast forward, y'all, I want to say about 30 minutes after the nurse had told me that I was 4 centimeters dilated, the OB came in, the one who delivered my baby, and she ended up checking me. And I don't know if I just don't remember this part with my previous births or not. Well, I know it didn't happen with my oldest daughter, Giselle, because like I said, I had a C-section with her, so it was, you know, there was no need for them to do that with her. But with my son, I don't remember them checking me and blood being on their finger. Like, I don't know, like either I wasn't paying attention, but I remember the doctor came in. I remember she went to check me. She stuck her fingers in there, and when her fingers came out, like, sis had all types of blood dripping down her gloves and things, and I was traumatized. And I asked them, I said, should I be bleeding? And they told me like it was normal, like, yeah, it's okay, yeah, that's a normal thing, like you're supposed to be bleeding. And I was just kind of like, okay, you know, I was uneasy with that, but it was what it was at this point. Mind y'all, I had a birth plan on how I wanted things to go with my delivery, with my birth. I had like everything. One thing I can say about this pregnancy was the most planned out, organized pregnancy of them all. Like, even from the conception of the pregnancy, like, you know, that was planned, like everything was planned. But of course, when you're dealing with situations like this, you just, no matter how much preparation in advance you do, these babies, honey, they just gonna do what they want to do. Not one time did I even pull out my phone to show the nurses my birth plan, because everything just went out the door. Like, everything went out the door when I got there, and I was in pain. And you know what I'm saying, my contractions, I never anticipated my contractions to start out as quick as they did. It's like I never had a lot of time to really let the fact that, you know, she was coming on that day sink in. Like, from the moment I started contracting, they were just, from the get-go, 3 to 5 minutes apart. It took off from there. Don't y'all know that after she ended up checking me, she told me that I was 10 centimeters dilated and that I was ready to push. If y'all could have been in that room to see how big my eyes got, like, I'm telling y'all, me and Journey, because at that point he had made it back, of course, obviously. So me and him was just looking at each other like, what? Like, are you serious? I'm ready to push. Like, huh? Like, it was mind blowing, y'all. It was. So before you know it, I'm pushing. Journey is on one side and he got my leg and he's holding my leg back. And the nurse is on the other side. She's holding my other leg. And doctor, of course, is at the bottom. She's coaching me through it, telling me to push. And they're like, you're doing so good. Okay, so I do got to let y'all know that at this time, the anesthesiologist had already came in the room and administered my epidural. I was not going to let him forget it. Who was about to push out a baby without epidural? Not me, not I, not Demetria. I was on them the entire time about the epidural until they gave me the epidural. And mind you, as she's giving me the epidural, y'all, I'm having to, like, literally, I asked her, because I'm still having contractions and they're coming rapidly. So I asked her if she could put it in, like, if she could administer it in between contractions, because I just couldn't have imagined her trying to give me an epidural while I'm going through pain on that intense of a level. So luckily, she was a nice anesthesiologist and she told me that she would be able to, you know, administer it in between contractions, because I heard that some anesthesiologists will literally, like, just do what they got to do whether you having a contraction or not. Like, they won't stop to, you know what I'm saying, make sure that you good and none of that. They just do what they got to do and leave. But she was so nice and she was so sweet, and I was so grateful to have her that night administering my medicine. I really wish that I would have known who she was, or like a name or something like that, because I would have tried to get a gift or something like that for her. She was so sweet. Like, she was doing stuff that wasn't even a part of her job, like talking me through it. Like, that's not even in her role. Like, that's more of a job for like the nurses and stuff like that. But she was like, she talked me through it. She told me everything was gonna be okay. She was just telling me to breathe the whole time, and before I knew it, like, she was done. And I remember just asking her, like, is it in? You done already? And she told me, like, yeah, girl, you're good. And so I was like, okay, cool, let's go. So about 5 minutes after that, I started to feel so much better. Like, oh my gosh, like, compared to how I was feeling at first, you could just say I was on cloud 9 at that point, because it was just, oh my gosh, it was just such a relief. Fast forward to a few minutes later, the doctor is telling me to push. Journey standing on one side, the nurse is standing on the other side, and then of course doctor is at the bottom. The doctor and the nurse is telling me to push. So I'm pushing, I'm giving it all I got. Like, I'm ready to get my baby out. I'm ready to meet my baby girl. So I'm pushing for dear life. I'm pushing with everything in me. And after the first push, they were like, you're doing good, keep going. And they're telling me that I could stop to, you know, breathe or take a breath or whatever. But like, I wasn't on it. Like, I was ready to, I didn't want no breaks in between. I wanted to just push. So they were asking me at that point when I was ready, and I was telling them whenever I was ready to push, I was just like, okay, let's do it, let's go. So whenever I was telling them I was ready to go again, we would push again for about 10 seconds. The nurse would count down from 10, and each time I pushed, they were saying that, you know, oh, you're making progress, you're doing good. And I want to say on about the third or fourth push, the doctor was saying that she saw her head, like she was crowning. Honey, when I heard that, like, that was all the little encouragement and motivation I needed. Like, when I heard that she was crowning, I went in. So I think it took maybe about 3 or 4 pushes later from the time that they told me she was crowning until she was out. And she came out, she was so tiny. I remember seeing her little arms and her little legs, and I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, she's so tiny. Like, she's so tiny, she's so little. And of course I didn't know how much she weighed right then and there, because of course they got to take her over to the side and clean her off and all that good stuff. So I ended up finding out about 10 minutes after she came out that she was 5'12". So y'all, she was so tiny, she was so little. My baby was so little. And she was the smallest baby that I had out of all my 3. She was the smallest. So I was just so glad. Like, in that moment, y'all, the amount of just joy and relief, and just knowing that it was over and I'm done, you know. I just felt so accomplished in that moment. Like, it was everything. Like, it was a whole mood. The moment, the whole moment was the moment, all right? It was a whole mood. So we decided to name her Jersey Chanel Lofties, and she is a happy and healthy baby. We are so happy to have her here and a part of the family. She is so loved. She's such a happy baby. She brings our family so much joy, and we just love her to pieces. We can't imagine our lives without her. Definitely completes our little family. So yes, guys, that was my birth story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And the last thing that I did want to tell you guys is that she is actually 4 months old now. So no, I didn't film the video right away. I had her 4 months ago. So I was supposed to actually film it at 3 months, but you know, life. I love you, Bill. So speaking of, I had to pick her up, y'all, because she was crying for milk. I just wanted to give you guys a quick little peek at baby girl. All right, and here is the star of the show, you guys. Here is little Miss Jersey Chanel, and she's spitting up milk. Say hi. Say hello. 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 Oh, she gave y'all a smile. Oh, hello. Hello. All right, you guys. Well, that is it for this one. As y'all can see, I got to go clean her up now. See you guys on the next one. Bye.